oh, I didn't notice you there. No, I'm just kidding. I guess that was a little icebreaker for me. So I'm gonna be telling you guys the story of Shai before Christ. So who I was prior to becoming a Christian. I'm doing this for many reasons. One, because a lot of people who I grew up with that knew me before I was a Christian often wonder what happened to me, and even ask like, what happened to you? And another reason is a lot of people wonder why I hold so strongly to my beliefs. And so I'm just gonna share. All right, so I didn't actually grow up in a religious home. Sure, we had like Christian values where we'd pray before we went to bed and pray before we ate, but no one was actually like committed to a lifestyle that followed Jesus. So we'd go to church here and there, but we weren't actually even rooted in one church. Like, we'd go to Catholic church, we'd go to Pentecostal church, and my understanding of church was that people who believed in God would meet at this place. That's my only understanding. And so I remember being 6 years old and having this really intense dream that stuck with me to this day, where I was falling in this deep pit of fire, and like it was like never ending, okay? And this dream literally traumatized me. So I'm falling down, falling deeper, and then this, like, the only way how I could describe it is like this glorified person of light, like literally glorified, was reaching their hand out to rescue me. And I was in shock. I wouldn't even like put my hands out. But the deeper I got, the more I wanted to. And so I reached my hand up, and this person grabbed my hand and pulled me up. Then I woke up. All right, so that actually stuck with me. I never actually told anybody about it. I was 6 years old, but to this day I remember it, and I remember the feeling that it gave me. Anyways, my grandma, like I said before, would take us to church, and this one time she took me to church, and I saw people getting baptized. And so I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that to me, people who went down in the water and came back up looked like angels. So I was like, yo, I'm trying to do this. I want to look like an angel. And so I got baptized. I was 10 years old, not knowing what it meant. And then that was that. I didn't really do anything with it. So I believed in God, but that was that. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my immediate family, like the home that I grew up in. And so I'm the oldest of now, I think, 5 kids. But we grew up fatherless. So I grew up with my single mom doing both jobs. And so not having a dad really messed me up from a young age. I felt empty. I was lacking something. I felt like I wasn't enough to actually keep someone around, or like even worthy of love. And so anytime I'd see people, kids on the street with their dads, I'd be so jealous of that because I didn't have it, right? And then my mom got into a relationship with this one man who was really sweet at first. Eventually he started getting really abusive, like really abusive, to the point where we had to move out to a women's shelter. We were living in Toronto at the time, but we had to move to Scarborough, to this women's shelter. And it was good. Like, I finally felt safe in my own home. But it was also embarrassing because people would want to come over, but they couldn't. Why? Because we live in a women's shelter. Also, I'm just not trying to tell people that we live there because that was embarrassing to me. So anyways, we lived there for a while, and then we got transferred to Bowmanville. Okay, get this. We come from Toronto, moved to Scarborough, and then we're jumping all the way to Bowmanville, where all I saw was bush and white people. Now, I'm not racist, but I was scared because I heard about KKK as a child, and so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going there to die. That was my mindset, and so I really didn't want to go. But anyways, we moved out there anyways, and it started growing on me. I was in grade 7 at the time, I think. And so after a while, like fast forwarding, I was getting ready for high school, and I was the person who said, I'm not drinking when I get to high school, I'm not smoking, I'm not gonna be, like, I'm just trying to make my mama proud, I'm trying to get that education in, right? And so that was my mindset going into high school. Now, just a bit about the way how I acted out at home. I was a really angry kid, so I'd always be fighting my sister, just because I was lacking love, and I just like, I don't know, I was a very angry kid. But anyways, I brought this into high school, and yeah, it started showing up, but I'm gonna back up a little bit. So I get to high school now, and I was the person that if my friends were smoking in the smoking section, I'd actually go up to them and like snap their cigarettes because I'm like, this is actually gonna kill you. What's wrong with you, right? Um, but this one time, my friend invited me to her house, and my mom was super strict, so she wouldn't let me go anywhere. But this time she did. And so I go sleep over at her house, and this girl pulls out a bong while I'm there, and I'm like, okay, what is wrong with you? Like, put that away type thing, right? And eventually she peer pressured me into trying it, and I did, and I loved it. I was like, okay, this is actually numbing me from my reality, from my brokenness, and so I really liked it. And so I got into smoking weed when I was in grade 9, and that led into I got introduced to drinking with her, and I just kind of hid that from my mom, but I was like slowly getting into it. And so anyways, in high school, I was into sports, I was a dancer, um, and I don't know, I was Shay Shay Bubbles. Honestly, I don't even know how that name came up, but all I know is that eventually my dance teacher started calling me it. Um, my principal, like a lot of people started calling me Shay Shay Bubbles. And I started getting a lot of attention. And this for me, like, was what I wanted. Like, I wanted attention. And so there would be certain guys who pursued me, but I wasn't really feeling it until it was this one guy who completely buttered me up and got my attention, only to take my virginity and kind of like off it. And so that messed me up as well. I think at this time I was in grade 10, and so I slowly started to get into the things that I said I wouldn't get into. And so after that happened, I was really hurt by it because I really like fell in love with this guy. And so I told myself, okay, I'm gonna start playing people too. Like, I'm gonna hurt people as well. And so I would start talking to multiple guys at once, even if I was seeing someone, I would still be talking to other people. And just a bit of background as well. I was the type of person where I was attracted to whoever I was attracted to. So if I was attracted to a guy, I was attracted to a guy. If I was attracted to a girl, I was attracted to a girl. I didn't play on my attraction to girls until this one time when I went to a party, and I was there super high, super like drunk, and this girl kissed me on the cheek. And as soon as she did, I don't know, something weird happened inside of me, and I was like, what the what is going on here? I kind of like that type thing, right? And so I was like, okay, maybe this is something else that could distract me from the way I actually feel about myself, and also just help me out type thing, right? Like, I'm looking for purpose, okay? And so I was just, anything that I could find that made me feel good, I would move towards. And so I also started talking to girls, and but I was always talking to more than one person at a time. And so at this time in high school, I really started to become obsessed with like being high. Like, I would smoke before school, I'd smoke, so like before classes started, lunchtime, after class, and then I'd go to my friend's house, we'd be smoking. My mom didn't know. I think she had like an idea, but she didn't know. My grandma, like, she was very active in my life, and she'd always be like, I'm praying for you and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I just completely forgot about God in high school, to be honest. Like, I'd go to a youth group, a Catholic youth group, but the only reason why I went was because they had food, and I would always be high, so I'd get the munchies and I'd go. And so after this now, um, I would start going to a lot of different parties, and I'd hook up with different people. But this one time, I was at a party, and I told my friend, there was this guy there that liked me, and I told my friend, like, I'm getting super, like, blackout drunk and lit tonight, so I need you to watch me, make sure I don't go anywhere with this guy or anything like that. Just being really irresponsible. And anyways, that happened, and I remember this guy calling me into the room, and I was like, okay, like, no, like, I'm not going, right? I kept drinking more, smoking more, and I slowly started, like, losing my, I don't even know what you call it. I just, like, wasn't actually there. And he was calling me into the room, and I remember my friend, like, pushing me in the direction of the room, right? The one that I said, like, watch out for me tonight, like, pushed me in the direction of the room. And so all I know is that, like, I would come in and out of consciousness being in the room with that guy, and he was like, I was being raped. So anyways, after that happened, I was even more of a mess. Not a lot of people know about that, but so I was just like so broken. I started selling weed to people, started stealing more, started just rebelling. I didn't really know what to do with everything that I was feeling inside. Um, and so, like, my actions were like smoke weed, get drunk, numb yourself, but don't talk about what you're feeling. And so the way that an outlet for me would be music, and so I'd always be like rapping and stuff. I'd go to my friend's house and we'd smoke weed, we'd have freestyle battles, like, yeah. And so I started becoming a bully in high school. I got into a fight, got suspended. Like, I was just like really going downhill. I remember my grandma started showing up at places where she didn't know I was, because she'd have visions of me being there. So this one time I was behind my high school smoking weed with some friends. I told my mom I was going to the youth center, but my grandma calls me and she's like, come to the front of the school. And I'm like, what are you talking about, the front of the school? Like, because how did she know I was there? And she's like, come to the front of the school. And I'm like, okay. So I'm at this point, like, popping Visine in my eyes, sprinting to the front of the school. And she's like, I know what you were doing. Like, I get to her, she's like, I know what you were doing. I was like, what? Like, how do you know? I was like, I was a quick liar too. I was like, we were just playing manhunt, da-da-da-da. She's like, no, you were smoking weed. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what's weed? And she's like, she said that she had a vision of me smoking. I was like, what the heck? Like, that, this is weird. Like, what are you talking about? And so, like, this type of stuff kept happening. I'd go to a party, I'd be hooking up with someone, she'd call me and tell me that she, like, had a vision of, like, stuff happening to me and stuff. And so, like, it just kept happening, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how you know this stuff, but it's freaking me out. And so, like, at this time too, I was talking to this girl. We started getting serious, literally fell in love with her. And but I was also talking to other people. And so I remember I was just, like, always looking for things to numb me. I was always looking for temporary things to fill my emptiness, fill my brokenness. And so that's what I was doing. But I remember all these things kept happening with my grandma, and she kept reaching out to me. And then I was like, okay, is this God reaching out to me? Like, I don't actually know what this is. But I remember this one time I thought I was pregnant, and so this was the first time I actually reached out to God in my high school, while I was in high school, because I was like, yo, if I'm pregnant, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna have to get an abortion. And so I cried out to God. This was the first time in high school where I was like, okay, God, if I am not pregnant, I'll never have sex again. Like, I promise. And I wasn't pregnant. Praise the living God, I wasn't pregnant. But after that, I just went on living the way I was living before. But then I started feeling guilty about it. Plus, I had my grandma, like, showing up randomly at places where I was just being a rebel, and just, like, so many things were going on. And I just felt, I don't know, like, I felt like my life was pointless. I was like, there has to be more to the way I'm living. I feel numb. And so I remember it was the summer of 2012, I believe, and I started feeling like dirty about my sin. And so I'm like, why do I feel this way? And I started feeling hopeless and like I had no purpose and all this stuff. And I remember I was in my house this one day and no one was home. And I was just crying. I was like, honestly, I'm just actually sick of this life that I'm living. Like, I'm actually done with it. There has to be more to life than this. And I remember crying. And honestly, it felt like God was like tugging on my heart to like talk to him. That's the only way how I could describe it. Like, I didn't know what was going on, but it felt like there was a tug there. And I'm like, okay, there's no way I could actually talk to you, God, because I've been such a mess. I literally been having sex, been like selling drugs, like just all these different things that I'm doing. And I know that the way how people portray you is as someone who judges, so there's no way I can go to you. And so I was like, I was avoiding talking to God, but I was crying. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? So I cried out to God, literally in a freestyle. I'm not kidding. I don't know what I was saying, something along the lines of like, forgive me, and if you're there, just like love me, please. Like, I actually, like, give me purpose. Like, and then I was like, okay, I'll give my life to you as long as you like rescue me, something like that. And I remember at that moment, I'm not kidding, that I don't actually have words for it other than the fact that it felt like liquid love was literally coming over me at that point. Like, I was encountering the living God, okay? And so I was just in shock, and everything that was missing in my life, like, it felt like I felt like, I don't know, peace. And I felt like the emptiness inside of me was being filled. And so I was like, okay, God, like, what now, type thing, right? And so I had that encounter with God. And then I remember going to church the following week on a Sunday. I hadn't been to church in a really long time. So I go to church, and I hear them singing a song that went something like, sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. And I was like, I broke. Like, I literally, that was at the beginning of the service, and I cried all the way until the end, and I didn't know why I was crying. Went up to the pastor, I was like, honestly, I don't know why I'm crying. All I know is that I heard that song and something hit me, and I don't know what's happening. And so what I do remember happening is that I felt super dirty, and I didn't know why God was like trying to pull me in his direction. And then I went to church, and hearing that Jesus actually died in place for my sin so I could actually have a relationship with God, and be restored, and be fulfilled, that's what hit me. And it was also God working in my heart. And so after that, I decided to just like throw everything all in, like give my life to Jesus. So I was like, okay, I know I smoke weed, I'm talking to girls and all this stuff, like, you're gonna have to change me, because I don't want to live the way I was living. And I've found a hope in you that is satisfying to me. And so God slowly started helping me lose my desire for my sin. It was a process, obviously, but I stopped smoking weed. I stopped talking to the girl, like, I didn't want to, but like, I stopped talking to the girl that I was talking to. And yeah, ever since that, like, God has completely changed my life. And so why am I such a strong believer in God and Jesus? Because he saved me, and he set me free from a lot of things. And even I remember opening up my Bible for the first time and flipping to the page that said, it was somewhere in Psalms, I believe, where it said, God is a father to the fatherless. And so God just kept showing me like he's for me, and he has plans for me, and I don't have to live the way I did, because he actually has a purpose for my life. And so I gave my life to Jesus. And yeah, it's been a process ever since. And I've been a Christian for 6 years now. Haven't smoked, haven't drank, haven't had sex, haven't like done any of that thing, because I lost my desire for it. I tasted God, like, I tasted and saw that God was good. And so that is enough for me to keep going, even when it's hard. Sometimes I struggle with doubt, sometimes I'm mad at God, but I'll never forget his pursuit of me. He got my attention. And so yeah, That's pretty much it. Bye guys.